think we can start now. Hey guys, my name is Victoria, welcome back to my channel. It's June, it's Pride Month, we're here again, and we're gonna talk all about queer books this month, and especially in this video because I'm going to talk about all the books that I have read, that maybe I would recommend, that I want you guys to know about, and also books that are on my personal TBR for this month. Thank you to my sister Marie, who sponsored this video with her clothes. As part of the LGBTQ+ community, I think it's very important that we give queer authors and queer characters a listen or a read and give them our utmost attention. I can make an elaborate introduction on why I think it's important, on the struggles that our community still faces, but let's keep this a bit shorter. Maybe I'll probably write something on Instagram, but this video is gonna be a long one, so I think we're gonna start right away. We're gonna start with the sapphic books, so all about books with either bisexual, pansexual, or lesbian characters that are involved in a love story with a woman. Yay! You Should See Me in a Crown by Leah Johnson. I read this, I think when did I read this? In March. I really like this book. It's high school. Our main character needs to win prom queen in order for her to go to college. And on this journey she meets a girl and it's very lovely. It's not primarily a love story, but the love story is in there. And, I really like it. Usually I'm not the biggest fan of high school books, but it was nice to read about her story and also, yeah, getting the love story in high school because not many queer people or queer kids, especially from my generation, were able to have that in high school. And I hope that will change soon. One Last Stop by Casey McQuiston. I recently read this, literally it's in my May wrap-up, I told you all about it. August is a 23-year-old student, she doesn't really know what she wants, has a bad relationship with her mother, and then she meets this gorgeous girl, Jane, on the train, and she realizes that Jane is not only dressed as someone from the 70s, she actually is from the 70s. They both fall in love. It's steamy. I'm gonna tell you all the time if a book is very steamy because I know not everybody likes explicit content. The book is pretty good. I enjoyed it, and I'm not gonna tell you what the ending is, but I think Casey McQuiston's books are always recommendable. Recommendable? Is that a word? You know what I mean. Including the next book, which is I Kissed Shara, also by Casey McQuiston. This is a kind of like Paper Towns by John Green, just queer, which I really like. It's about this beautiful girl, Shara, and she kisses the main character. I actually don't know her name. Wait, let me look. Chloe Green. Chloe Green is kissed by this girl, and Shara leaves a note and is gone. Apparently, on a furious hunt for answers, Chloe discovered she's not the only one Shara kissed. There's also Smith, Shara's longtime quarterback sweetheart, and Rory, Shara's bad boy neighbor with a crush. The three have nothing in common except Shara and the annoyingly cryptic notes she left behind, but together they must untangle Shara's trail of clues to find her. It'll be worth it if Chloe can drag Shara back before graduation to beat her fair and square, because this is all about a contest that Chloe Green is close to winning, and I'm pretty excited. I really want to read this book, and so far I've only heard good things about it. The next book is a book that I also read, Marriage of a Thousand Lies by C.J. Sindhu. This is about Lakshmi, or her nickname Lucky. She grows up and she lives in a Sri Lankan American family, but is also secretly gay. She's married to a friend of hers who's also gay, and they have to kind of uphold this facade of them being happy and being, you know, everyone's telling them, oh, you need to have a baby, have children, and they're like, no, we're both gay. But it's primarily about Lucky and how she lives in a world, or rather lives in two worlds, of her wanting to be out and proud and her not being ashamed of her own sexuality and identity, but also then having to hide and having to lie. And it is a story that is sort of centered around the oppression that she faces, especially because of her culture and her family's traditions. But it was a great story to dive into, especially to get an insight into Sri Lankan traditions, history, culture, and that was my favorite part of the book. I would say that the representation of the queer community is really, really well done in Lucky's character, and the love story is more of a sideline or a side plot, which causes some trouble. It also causes sweet moments, but I would focus on Lucky in this book and watch a flawed character make decisions and not knowing what she really wants and needs from life, but something that I think a lot of people might be able to relate to. Next one is a fantasy book by an author I found on TikTok. I showed this book in physical TBR video. The Bloodshed of the Betrayed by A.L. Slade. I'm just gonna read it to you. Unable to feel emotions, angels are God's devoted soldiers who are tasked with carrying out God's will. One of which is to answer the question, can angels handle the gift of emotions without it interfering with their loyalty to God? Enter Laramie. Angel Laramie is given emotions as a trial to decide once and for all if angels are ready to feel again. However, she soon becomes sidetracked by an infatuation with a human called Maggie, prompting her to neglect her orders and allow her mission to fail. She returns to her superiors in hopes of helping the human, only to learn her feelings were a test. Her failure means her banishment to Earth until she fades away forever. Magda Mercy is a 23-year-old college student with dreams of becoming a doctor. Her life changes forever when her brother returns on leave from the military with devastating family news. In exile, Laramie is confronted by Lucifer with a confounding revelation that changes everything Laramie has ever known as an angel. Lucifer presents an offer of eventual immortality in exchange for Laramie's ceaseless fidelity. When Laramie declines, Lucifer lashes out by tormenting the innocent Maggie as punishment for Laramie's refusal. By the way, I'm sorry if I say Laramie's name wrong. Laramie must now do everything in her power to save Maggie and prevent Lucifer from realizing his goals, even if it means reaching oblivion sooner. So the angel could be called Laramie or Laramie. I know I read this entire description and I know I don't need to do that. I won't do it for every single book here, but I thought it was a pretty good summary and made me pumped to read this book. I think this is gonna be great. I barely read fantasy because I've been in the Mortal Instruments or the Shadowhunters Chronicles fantasy world and universe for so long that it's kind of hard for me to dive into another fantasy world except for Percy Jackson. I'm excited to read this. This is also part of a series apparently. So yeah, a new perspective on angels, a new perspective on, you know, God, and also angels with emotions. Really cool, and queer. You could not ask for anything better, right? Another queer sapphic book that everyone has been talking about and I still want to read, I still have to read it, is This Is How You Lose the Time War by Max Gladstone and Amal El-Mutar. I probably said this wrong. Let's read the summary. Thus begins an unlikely correspondence between two rival agents hell-bent on securing the best possible future for their warring fractions. Now, what began as a taunt, a battlefield boast, becomes something more, something epic, something romantic, something that could change the past and the future. Except the discovery of their bond would mean the death of each of them. There's still a war going on, after all, and someone has to win. That's how war works, right? People say that the writing is beautiful, that the entire story is maybe even tragic. I want to read it badly. It's been on my TBR for forever, and I think it's gonna be a sad one, but I still want to read it. Another book I have here, which is one that I found on the internet, which is called We Play Ourselves by Jen Silverman. After a humiliating scandal, a young writer flees to the West Coast to start over, where she is drawn into the morally ambiguous orbit of a charismatic filmmaker and the teenage girls who are her next subjects. I read the entire description, which I'm not going to do here, and I'm not convinced that the love story that this book tells is a happy one. It is a very interesting book that I found. I love the characters' descriptions, so the playwright casts and then the filmmaker, two things that I'm really interested in, and it being queer, though I'm not sure if it's happy or not. I'm excited. Okay, let's continue. I think we're gonna go with Achillia next. So love stories or books primarily centered around boys loving boys or men loving men. The first one, which became one of my absolute favorites, is Best Laid Plans. Do you want a love story that is really progressive, that is, in my opinion, very mature, that is open about consent, has a really deep and thoroughly detailed conversation about consent, that does not have the misunderstanding trope, and that is very satisfying? This is the book for you. I love this book. The characters in this book are in their mid-30s, so Charlie is pretty much a loner. He wasn't really that big on relationships. He had to take responsibility for a lot of things very early in life. That also is very interesting in this book. And he works in his father's hardware store, where he one day sees a stranger, new to town, very gloomy looking guy, and that guy is Rai Jansen. Rai Jansen is also very much a loner. He doesn't really have anyone when he comes to town, and he recently inherited a house that is literally crumbling, and he tries to get it back up to make it nice and livable on his own, and then very soon realizes that that does not work very well and that he needs help, and guess who's coming to help? That's all I'm gonna say. I love this book. It's great. It does feature serious topics, but overall I love the bond between the two, and yeah, I really like it, and I have not seen it anywhere. Okay, next book, one that has become so popular, and if you have not read these books yet, this is your sign. If multiple people told you to read these books and you still haven't, this is your sign to read them. This is your sign to get copies, to read it online. Everything is online for free. Probably gonna link it down below. But guys, read Heartstopper. Read Heartstopper, oh my god. Since the show came out, it's been sold out everywhere. I think after a month you can find them again. This is volume 2. I do not have all the other books, but I read the graphic novel online. If you want to have a piece of happiness in your life, if you feel like your whole life is falling apart, this, while reading it, will give you a break from that. Especially volume 1 and volume 2. Volume 3 and volume 4 are a bit more focusing on mental health issues, so definitely read the trigger warnings before you go into these books, but especially volume 1, I can only recommend it. And volume 2, sadly, a book about 2 boys falling in love in high school, also deals with a bit of homophobia, but overall this is not the focus that the author, that Elazo, put in the books. This is just a love story, and I love it, and so many people love it. And if you have not seen the show, watch the show, please do. There will be 3 seasons at least, and I'm so excited. I think the casting is done brilliantly, and yeah, just huge boosts of serotonin. If you want more serotonin, read these books. If you still haven't, this is your sign. Get them now. They're so good. If you don't know, as I said, this is the love story between Charlie and Nick in high school, and it's so nice to read a love story between 2 boys that are able to fall in love. And also, this is not only about them, by the way. There are multiple side characters that are very important to the whole story, and it has multiple representation. I'm gonna put all the flags in there. Read the books, read this graphic novel. It's amazing, I love it. Okay, let's get to a very different tone. The Binding by Bridget Collins, which I read or started listening to. It's a long book, let me tell you. It's slow paced, but don't let that deter you. Let's talk about it. The Binding very much felt like a classic, and I did not even know that there was LGBTQ+ characters in there, and I realized, oh, what? I did not expect this. Let me give you a quick description. Imagine you could erase your grief. Imagine you could forget your pain. Imagine you could hide a secret forever. Emmett Farmer is working in the fields when a letter arrives, summoning him to begin an apprenticeship. He will work for a bookbinder, a vocation that arouses fear, superstition, and prejudice, but one neither he nor his parents can afford to refuse. He will learn to handcraft beautiful volumes, and within each he will capture something unique and extraordinary. A memory. If there is something you want to forget, he can help. If there's something you need to erase, he can assist. Your past will be stored safely in a book, and you will never remember your secret, however terrible. In a vault under his mentor's workshop, row upon row of books and memories are meticulously stored and recorded. Then one day, Emmett makes an astonishing discovery. One of them has his name on it. The Binding is an unforgettable magical novel, a boundary-defying love story, and a unique literary event. I agree with all of that. I believe that the writing was beautiful. I listened to this in January, so it's been a few months, and even though it was, for me at least, very slow-paced, I thought that it was so unique and so interesting. And then overall, including queer characters and a love story between 2 boys, was amazing. It really felt like you were listening to an old classic, that the way that it was written, but not meaning, because some people think that classics are boring as hell, not meaning that the entire story is hard to get through. It really wasn't. In the end, you realize that all the elements that were included in the book are fantastically placed, and characters were really amazingly written. I can only recommend it if you thought this summary sounded good. You will enjoy this book. If you've never read a book including a deaf character, I can only recommend you This Is Some Kind of Epic Love Story by Kissed Shara. I read this in also I think January. That was the first book I listened to this year, and it is a story about a boy in high school. He wants to be a screenwriter and pretty much lives in that world. By the way, loved all the references that were done. And his longtime best friend comes back after I think 5 years, I'm not quite sure, comes back to school, and they kind of reconnect and tell the reader about their love story. What I loved most about the book was the aspect of finally a deaf character written in a book, because sometimes you think, okay, how would that work if they can't talk, right? But the way that sign language was included in this book and was written in this book was fantastic. I loved it, and it made me realize how little books I read with people that have disability. Let's not call it disabilities, because for these people, it's just their life. Or people who present a different community that you're not really exposed to that much. That was great. I loved it. And also, if you haven't noticed, not all of these books have fantastic written love stories. I think last year I pretty much focused on the love stories, and of course most and the majority of these will be love stories, but what's important to me is including stories with queer characters that tell you about their life, that is not only about them coming into their own. Of course, some of the books that I have here have this, like Heartstopper, people realizing that they are not straight, getting into their first relationship. Of course, these elements are included in a lot of these books that I'm showing you right now, or that I want to read. But I also want to read more books about people accepting their identity, being fine with it and proud of it, and being able to live fully, and them not having to deal with that much oppression or hate. In my experience with queer books, and I've read many, there will be such elements, but I do want to read more books and show more books that do not have this element of queerness at their core. Some of them do, some of them don't. And I like the books where you read a story like The Binding, and you read the book for the story, for the plot, and then you realize, oh, there's queer characters in here, how amazing. And then it's normal, and that it's lovely, and I love that. Okay, now, oh yeah, I have this one, which is on my TBR. This is If This Gets Out by Sophie Gonzalez and Kale Dietrich. I struggled with this in my physical TBR video. But this is about Ruben and Zach, and they are in the world's biggest boy band, and they're also secretly in love. Probably also includes lots of not being out of the closet, having to hide, having secrets. These are also stories that we still need to listen to. Okay, I think we're gonna continue with 3 books that I bought, which are by trans authors about trans characters. The first one is a book that is, I think, very well known. I have not read it yet, but a lot of people said that it's amazing, which is Detransition Baby by Tori Peters. I'm gonna read you the summary. A uniquely trans take on love, motherhood, and those exes who you just can't quit. Reese nearly had it all. A loving relationship with Amy, an apartment in New York, a job she didn't hate. She'd scraped together a life previous generations of trans women could only dream of. The one thing missing was a child. Then everything fell apart, and 3 years on, Reese is still in self-destruct mode, avoiding her loneliness by sleeping with married men. When her ex calls to ask if she wants to be a mother, Reese finds herself intrigued. After being attacked in the street, Amy detransitioned to become Ames, changed jobs, and thinking he was infertile, started an affair with his boss, Katrina. Now Katrina's pregnant. Could the 3 of them form an unconventional family and raise the baby together? I think now, more than ever, it's important to listen to trans people. Time and time again showed how many people still struggle with this, but I'm also seeing so much more representation in the media, in documentaries, in daily television, on multiple platforms, and I think especially in this Pride Month we should definitely give trans people, trans authors, and trans characters our support, our open ears. My camera died. We're all part of one community, and I think it's important to, as I said, now more than ever, to listen to them and support them in any way that we can. Also, it's beautiful. And I think this book is very unique because detransitioning is so, I think, stigmatized. And I myself have not had many conversations with trans people, and also about detransitioning, what I think is very condemned in the media. and been very condemned by lots of narrow-minded people. So I'm so excited for this book and can't wait to read it because people have said it's amazing. The next book is a short story collection, which I'm so excited about. I've wanted to read short story collections for forever. This is A Dream of a Woman by Casey Plett. This looks so cool, by the way. I love the cover. I think it's so fun. And I'm going to read you the summary. A Dream of a Woman is her first book of short stories since her seminal 2014 collection, A Safe Girl to Love. Centering transgender women seeking stable adult lives, A Dream of a Woman finds quiet truths in prairie high-rises and New York warehouses in freezing Canadian winter and drizzly Oregon days. In Hazel and Christopher, two childhood friends reconnect as adults after one of them has transitioned. In Perfect Places, a woman grapples with undesirability as she navigates fetish play with a man. In Couldn't Hear You Talk Anymore, the narrator reflects on her tumultuous life and what might have been as she recalls tender moments with another trans woman. An ethereal meditation on partnership, sex, education, romance, groundedness, and love. A Dream of a Woman buzzes with quiet intensity and the intimate complexities of being human. It just sounds great. I always wanted to read a short story collection and I am so excited to get into this. And the last one, which I'm not sure, but I think it's self-published. But I've seen it in an article and I love the summary, is The Companion by E. Ottoman, or Ottoman, how I would say in German. 1984, New York. After years of trying to break into New York City scene, Madeline Slaughter is emotionally and physically exhausted. When a friend offers her a safe haven as the live-in companion to reclusive, best-selling novelist Victor Hallowell, she jumps at the chance to escape the city. Madeline expects to find rest and quiet in the forest of upstate New York. Instead, she finds Victor, handsome and intensely passionate, in Audrey Coffin, Victor's mysterious and beautiful neighbor. When Victor offers her a kiss and the promise of sensual pleasures, Madeline allows herself to become entangled, even as Audrey is also claiming her heart. The only problem is that Audrey and Victor are ex-lovers, with plenty of baggage between the two of them. As Madeline finds herself opening up and falling in love with both, she starts to wonder, can there be a future for all three? I thought it sounded amazing. I'm also excited to see what role the time that it's set in will play. So 1948, if it will be a story again of a bit of oppression, or if it will, which I hope for, focus on the main characters, on the three, and how they are able to form and hopefully build their relationship. So yeah, also polyamorous, which we don't see very often in my opinion. So I just read a review. This is a remarkable romance between two trans women and one trans man in a place of safety. That's good. I feel relieved because for a second I thought, wait, are they trans? But I like that it's not mentioned. I see why the description doesn't mention it, because overall it's not important. It's about two women and a man falling in love. But as we are here in this video talking about representation in books, I think mentioning it is important. So that's amazing. Really, really cool. He specializes in radical trans happily ever afters and darker things, which is great. I think this conversation is good to start now. Not too much, not too long, but time and time again I've seen, since I've sort of interested in queer representation in television, in media in general, in books, movies, whatever, shows, I've just seen that so little characters got happily ever afters. If it's not queerbaiting, they were confirmed, but then both of them died, one of them died, so the kind of bury your gays trope, which I absolutely despise. They broke up, or they are a sideline character whose only character trait is them being gay, lesbian, whatever, and I hate that so much. And I feel like it's taken a turn, especially with shows like Heartstopper coming out and more books from queer authors about queer characters getting very popular, getting out there, that have happy endings. I think it's so important to finally focus on the happy ending. I'm so sick of queer characters, and I'm also saying queer, by the way, that's an umbrella term if you didn't know. So when I say this, I'm including all of the identities or sexual orientations. I'm just so sick of them not being able to be happy. The picture of our community being painted as something that is painful and sad and tragic, which, yes, of course, those elements play a part, but it's not the majority of the thing. And that's why we have Pride. That's why we have this month of celebration, because it just shows how much we should celebrate ourselves. And I've seen so many people find like their found families in those parades in this month, because it's got to be said, not everyone is accepted by blood, which is horrible. When people just ask, why do you even need a Pride month, you know? Sexual orientation should not be like celebrated, or identities should not be celebrated when it's supposed to be like normal. I hope you get what I'm saying. That's mostly coming from straight people, but there is the sense of community coming through, and so many people do not get to experience that when they have to hide, can't really be who they are, especially when they're around family. So that's not a discussion that we're having now, but I just want to read queer happy ever afters. And although not every single book that I'm showing you right now that I have read or want to read has that happy ending, it's one thing that I badly want to focus on in the future. Okay, let's continue with a book that I believe has non-binary representation, which is a book that has been mentioned in a period of time, I think last year or the year before. But after that, I haven't seen it much. I haven't seen it on BookTube much. I have seen it on Book Talk. The next book is called Pet by Akwaeke Emezi. If I botched this, I'm so sorry. This is a book I found on TikTok, and I'm gonna read you the description now. How do you save the world from monsters if no one will admit they exist? She tried to be brave. Well, she said, her hands only a little shaky, at least tell me what I should call you. Well, little girl, it replied, I suppose you can call me Pet. There are no more monsters anymore, or so the children in the city of Lucille are taught. With doting parents and a best friend named Redemption, Jam has grown up with this lesson all her life. But when she meets Pet, a creature made of horns and colors and claws, who emerges from one of her mother's paintings and a drop of Jam's blood, she must consider what she's been told. Pet has come to hunt a monster, and the shadow of something grim lurks in Redemption's house. Jam must fight not only to protect her best friend, but also to uncover the truth. In the riveting and timely young adult debut, acclaimed novelist Akwaeke Emezi asks difficult questions about what choices a young person can make when the adults around them are in denial. So all the people that I have seen who have read this book said that it's really, really cool. First of all, I love the concept. I really tried to find more books this month that are not only focusing on, as I said, the love stories, but also have other fun elements like fantasy in them, or very unique to their own world elements. And this sounds so good. So I badly want to read it. The next two books are centered around aro ace characters. It's astonishing how little books I find aromantic or asexual representation. I only have two for you guys now, but because I read both of them, but I believe that I can put much more in my TBR. If you have any, please recommend them down below, and I'm gonna put some creators down below. I'm gonna say that at the end of this video again, but I'm gonna put some creators, especially on TikTok, that focus on queer LGBTQIA plus characters and books and authors, and recommend books, tons of books, because this is just my TBR and things that I've read. So the next book is called Elazo. I'm currently reading this. This is by Darcy Little Badger, and this is such a fun book. As of now, it's not focusing that much on the main character, who's called Ellie or Elazo, on her being aro ace, so it's not really a discovery like the other book I'm going to show you of her sexuality, but it's just, this is her, this is who she is, and she tells you a completely different story. So let's talk about it. Let's read you the description. It's so much fun. Imagine an America very similar to your own. It's got homework, best friends, and pistachio ice cream. I've never eaten pistachio ice cream. I don't think I will try it though. There are some differences. This America has been shaped dramatically by the magic, monsters, knowledge, and legends of its peoples, though those indigenous and those not. Some of these forces are charmingly everyday, like the ability to make an orb of light appear or travel across the world through rings of fungi, but other forces are less charming and should never see the light of day. Elazo lives in this slightly stranger America. She can raise the ghosts of dead animals, a skill passed down through generations of her Lipan Apache family. Is it called Apache on, because that's how I think we say it in German. Is it that way in English as well?
Apache.
Apache. Okay, Apache. Great. Her beloved cousin has just been murdered in a town that wants no prying eyes. But she is going to do more than pry. The picture-perfect facade of Willoughby masks gruesome secrets, and she will rely on her wits, skills, and friends to tear off the mask and protect her family. I so far love this book. I love the world building. It's not that complicated to understand. I love the legendary aspect, so the legends that Elazo tells you about in the course of the book. So far, I really love it. I'm going to continue reading it, and Elazo being Aro Ace, I don't know if it's not going to be like a bigger conversation, but she definitely says that she's not interested in romance, she's not interested in having a partner or getting married, and yeah, I love that. Some people might think that's not really a good representation if it's not really said. As I said, I can't really speak for that aspect now because I don't know if it's gonna be a conversation in the book, but I think it's fun to remember that and just enjoy the story and realize that it's not all about your sexuality all the time. Okay, the book that I will never stop recommending, even though I've read it twice now, and I've shown it to you in my last Pride Month video, Loveless by Elazo. I believe the best book currently out there for aromantic and asexual representation. As a person who is aromantic and asexual, I felt so seen and so well represented in this book. If you have the chance to listen to it or to read it, please do. It's so important to learn new things, and I remember when I came out and I told my friends, hey, I identify as such, and everyone was like, what is that? I can't tell you how many times I've heard the sentence. It was all in good spirits, but I've heard the sentence of, oh well, you just have to wait for the right one, or but how can you say that if you've never experienced it, but how can you say that you don't want... I cannot tell you how many times I've heard the sentence. And I believe that a lot of people from the community in general that identify as bisexual, pan, gay, lesbian, they've heard the sentence like years before as well. And I think they still hear it to this day. But I have seen that through more representation, more people know about being gay, being bisexual, or maybe I'm just living in a bubble. I know that the sentence, but how do you know if you've never... I believe when it comes to being aromantic or asexual, and this is not to make myself or my sexuality more important, is that it's not really discussed that much. It does not have huge amounts of representation, and some people find it impossible to believe that some people are not interested in sexual or romantic things, and also confuse that a lot of time. Now, there are some people who are really not interested in having that, but the main definition of this sexual orientation is that if a person is aromantic, asexual, like me, I do not experience romantic or sexual attraction. I don't see people and feel that sort of attraction, and I don't meet people and feel that sort of attraction. It just does not happen. It's like there are some receptors that I don't have. I understand that it might be a bit difficult to believe because everyone's like, yeah, but I don't want to sleep with everybody that I meet. It's different. It's the way that you still experience that attraction, but people like me really don't. And as there is not a lot of information out there, I highly recommend Loveless because it discusses Georgia and how she badly wants to fall in love and realizes that she can't. That's not a thing that her system, her body, her heart wants. And that is difficult. And her finding out, or her starting to identify with that label, and first being angry and then later so relieved because she's like, oh my god, I thought something's wrong with me, and now I know more people are like that. And as it was written by Elazo, who identifies as aroace, I believe it just is the perfect representation. Not everyone has the same experiences, obviously, and finds out that they are not straight, but the turmoil and also the relief that comes with finding something that makes you feel heard and represented, it's just great. And if you have been recommended this book many times, this is your sign, read it. Just read it. I think if you have no idea what it might feel like to identify as such, to go through the world with a different view, because it's different when you don't experience those attractions and when it's everywhere. There's love stories everywhere and you're like, where am I? Where can I see myself? And I'm so happy that more people get to experience that people, when they watch Heartstopper, get to see actors like Jasmine, I forgot her last name, I'm sorry, a trans actress who is on TV and people are like, I can look up to her, and that's amazing. And I hope that will happen to people like me as well, and it's always so comforting. And that's why I'm actually doing this video, because representation matters. It really does. I could make a whole video about why representation matters so much, and it's just as important as reading books and supporting things done and made and originalized by people of color. Okay, there are many more books that I have on my TBR that are LGBT, but I think this is a good point where we can say I have a good amount of books that I really want to read this Pride Month, and definitely have more work to do when it comes to, for example, pansexuality being represented. And there are still lots of books and still lots of stories that I don't know of and that you might be able to tell me about, or the creators on TikTok, on Instagram, on BookTube that I'm going to put down below. And hopefully we all have a great Pride Month of reading. I don't know. Okay. To celebrate ourselves, if you're part of the community, or listen to others and support their stories. It's so important. I'm also looking for more queer people of color media or books and stories. So if you can recommend any, please leave them down below. I think this is it. Guys, I hope you have a great Pride Month. I hope we all get to celebrate ourselves and you get to celebrate yourself. And if you're not part of the community, be a good ally. If you haven't watched Heartstopper, you won't understand this reference. But if you want to be a great ally, listen to stories, let us or the queer community speak, support them. And if you buy books and watch media, try to find things by queer authors and about queer characters. And yeah, this is basically it. I love this video. I love filming such videos. If you want to see my last video that I did last year, which is only about the books that I have read, so this was also more about books that I want to read, then you can check it out. It's in my description box, and my hair looks weird. That's okay. And this is it, guys. I hope you liked it, and if you did, please give me a thumbs up and comment down below what you would like to see next. Subscribe to my channel if you haven't yet, and don't forget to click the little bell next to the subscription button to never miss an upload. If you want to support a queer creator, I'm gonna use that. No, I'm kidding. I'm gonna update you on everything on my Instagram, and if you want to read some of my poetry, and I will publish a poetry collection someday. My goal is next year, but it takes time. And if you want to support me, then you can already read some of my poetry and follow me on my poetry account. Everything is linked down below, including links that are attached to the war happening in Ukraine. As always, I'm going to put those in my description box. If you want to educate yourself or even donate, my description box. I need to stop. Thank you so much for watching, guys. I hope you have a wonderful day, a great Pride Month. This is a safe space for everybody. This is it. Where was I in my outro? I forgot. Okay. Thank you so much for watching. I already said this. Bye! Some of these forces... The bloodshed of the betrayed by The bloodshed of the betrayed by A.L. Slide. Have them and not give and really queer books as well, and if you still haven't, Volume 3 and Volume 3, Volume 3 and Volume 3. Imagine you could erase your grave. You should not erase your grave. I'm sorry. Because I know not everybody likes explicit content. Because I know not everybody likes this and can't. It's about this girl. It's about this gorgeous girl. It's about this beautiful girl. It's like a cake. Okay guys, this is it. Bye!